Welcome back to In Ohio Country today, and look who I found at the Conservation Tillage and Technology Conference. Nick Zachrich, manager at Farm Science Review. Nick, thanks for the time.
Yep, thanks for being here, Dan. We appreciate you here to support this endeavor that we have going on too, and always your support of Farm Science Review.
We love what you guys do. Let's talk about 24. Let's do a little quick recap of what happened last year.
Yeah, we had an interesting growing season, here in Ohio. A lot of drought in some areas, a lot of induced harvest a little bit early. So our attendance was a little bit lower than what we normally see. Still had over 100,000 people, though, and a lot of people were coming to find some new solutions to some issues that they were having. So some of the educational sessions that we had during Farm Science Review were really focused in on that drought and some of the challenges that we had in 24. We had our own challenges. We had a tornado that came through in February of last year. So the great thing was, as show time came around 7 months later, you wouldn't be able to know that the tornado actually came through. Things were cleaned up and things were just in great order. So we appreciate all the help that we had getting all the cleanup done, and also some of the reconstruction. So we had some exhibitors that even had some work to do on their buildings. So that's kind of been wrapped up, and now we get to look towards the future of what our capital improvements are going to be going into our own infrastructure through Ohio State with our presence at Farm Science Review at Molly Cairn Ag Center.
So you're getting ready for 2025. One of the first things I'm sure once the weather breaks is start thinking about planting. Let's talk about what your preparation is for that.
Yeah, we're just a few weeks away. Our farm crew is ready and ready to go to the field. We got great equipment lined up to be able to do that very quickly. With high-speed planting and things like that, and great sprayer technology, things go very quick for us. With a great crew to be able to manage that and be able to operate that equipment, we're in great shape. Things are shaping up. A lot of sunshine this week, so I think there's a lot of planters getting out of the barn this week or across the farms here in Ohio.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think people forget, too, that you are an active farm. Farm Science Review, the grounds, if you will, as an active farm. There's a lot to take into consideration, even before planting season, and personnel has a lot to do with it, I'm sure.
Yeah, we have a great farm manager. His name's Nate Zachrich, and we started about the same time with our roles at Farm Science Review at Molly Cairn. Worked together, even toward the end of our college careers there as students. So we've been around each other for a long time. He has a great crew, and they do an excellent job. We have over 1,400 acres that we actually farm. The nuances there are being a part of Ohio State. We do some research there, but it's more the large on-farm, full-scale research projects rather than the small plot stuff we have at other locations across the state with Ohio State. But those projects take time to plan. There's a lot of pieces with that, different equipment that's involved, different educators, even other companies, private stuff that happens sometimes. A lot of the research is through Ohio State, but if somebody's wanting to do a project, we have the opportunity to do that. Nate works with them directly and does a great job with that.
Yeah, that's really cool. You guys have a footprint far beyond London, Ohio, that's for sure. Let's talk about 2025 now, going into Farm Science Review. It's hard to believe we haven't planted yet, but once September rolls around, actually probably right after you get done planting, it's both guns blazing. So let's talk about some of the new things we can expect to see at Farm Science Review this year.
Yeah, and it's hard to believe that we're almost halfway back around to the next show. Yeah. So a few months ago, our application window opened up for exhibitors to return. They can pick out the same spot if they want the same location of the returning exhibitors. Any new exhibitors, they can apply. We've had a couple of dozen of those already, and that window is still open, so there's a few spaces left. So anybody that wants to apply and think about marketing to that big audience, we still have a few spaces. You can go to our website and find that information. But then as far as the education goes, being a university is a real blessing for us on being a farm show, because there's just so much built in that we can do on all the different projects that are going on across the college and our research stations across the state. So a lot of things that we're doing, we're going to be sharing at Farm Science Review. Some of the things that are kind of upgrading or getting a new look. Small Farms Center last year had a pretty good presence of new activities going on with some hands-on things, with some sheep shearing and some talk about backyard poultry or small poultry operations, and that's a great way to come in and learn how to diversify your farm a little bit. A few decades ago, we all kind of shrunk back into whatever our niche was going to be. For grain farmers or for cattle farmers, we all kind of went our own ways and kind of focused in on things. And now a lot of people are diversifying back out. So what are those opportunities? What markets are available? Those kind of discussions can be had at Small Farm Center. And part of it's that next generation stuff. So and maybe it's not the full succession planning, but part of it is. And how do I get another generation on the farm to be able to get a full family income off the farm when it's the same amount of acres? How do we maximize what we have the opportunity to do? And that's what they're going to be discussing at Small Farm Center.
You know, that's unique. For as many years as we've been going to Farm Science Review, Gary and I have talked about that. That small farms area has always been up to date and current with news and information and training, and in ways that you can not only improve your farm, but you can possibly create an agribusiness of your own. And the people you have speaking there and the techniques that they show are really cutting edge stuff. And I can remember the very first time they were talking about solar on the farm, or they were talking about windmills on the farm, or aeration in your ponds. You know, I expect this year maybe we'll be talking about raising chickens. Who knows?
Yeah, and there's a little bit of that too. There's a little bit of livestock, a little bit of specialty crop, small grains sometimes. Whatever the new niche is going on in our region, they're going to have some information about. And sometimes it's stuff that we've known for a while, but we just need a reminder of, maybe an update about what's happening, you know, with pumpkins or tomatoes and things like that. So there's a lot of opportunity there. You know, one of the target audiences for them too, being on the west end of our exhibit area, is where our student entrance is for high school trips coming in. So they know that, and there's 8,000 high school students that came in through the gates last year, and so that's a great audience for them, because you know, they can talk about, you know, in an FFA program, you know, part of that three-legged stool between the classroom, FFA, and then there's a supervised agricultural experience. So in schools, those students that are in FFA are required to have an SAE project. And how do you take that SAE project beyond the high school? So these students that are working on those projects now, what are the opportunities for that to become a business for them in their adult life?
You know, one of the things that I've noticed too is you talked about 8,000. It seems like that's more. I think that's less. I think there's more than 8,000 that come as far as students are concerned. But one of the cool things is, as we expand FFA programs, especially into the urban areas, sometimes this is the first connection that some of these urban FFA students have with the diversity that Farm Science Review and agriculture has, and the impact it has economically here in the Buckeye State. So that's one of the cool things about Farm Science Review, is the diversity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all the way from, you know, backyard gardening all the way up to the biggest farms you can get. So, you know, sometimes even growing up, there wasn't a lot of huge tractors in my area, my neighborhood. A lot of our neighbors, and especially on our family farm, it was we're like the third or fourth owner of a piece of equipment. Yeah. So we're kind of looking at machines at Farm Science Review, thinking, okay, in like 15 years we may be owning one of these, so we got to get familiar with them. Yeah. So some of that, you know, sometimes you might be completely ingrained in agriculture, but you still see things that you just are surprised at, and the new technology is just amazing. And especially, you know, you talk about the students that may not be from a traditional agricultural background, they're experiencing everything for the first time. Sometimes in some of the machinery, even if it's small, even if it's a walk-behind tractor, you know, a lot of us growing up 30, 40 years ago, or even longer, you remember a backyard, or, you know, like maybe like a gardening tractor that was a walk-behind, like a really nice rototiller is what we would consider that. But, you know, that's a way that some people want to farm and be able to produce things. And at this conference at CTTC, they're talking about regenerative agriculture. What does that mean? There's a lot of different definitions of that. And how do people be able to market those products that are just farmed in a little bit different way than what we're used to traditionally here in Ohio right now?
Well, I know we'll catch up with you again sometime soon as we get into the planting season and start preparing for this year's Farm Science Review. If people want more information or want to talk to you about possibly setting up a booth there, where do they go?
Yep, you can just visit our website. It is fsr.osu.edu.
fsr.osu.edu. Nick Zachrich has been our guest. Nick, thanks once again for joining us.
Yep. Thanks for the time, Dan.
And we'll be back with more In Ohio Country Today right after this.